Hello everyone, and welcome to Hill Street. Today's story is, we were exploring an abandoned factory. We found a little more than we had bargained for. If you end up enjoying this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. Now, let's get to this nightmare. It was the summer of 2017. I was a junior in high school. I had multiple groups of friends that I would float around in. With one group, which was 3 females and another male, that was particularly into urban exploration and photographing the places they would visit. I expressed some interest in accompanying them on their next adventure, and they suggested the abandoned factory that was in our town. Once the lifeline of our small medium town, the factory suffered multiple fires until it eventually was abandoned, left as a 20-story eyesore, but was unable to be destroyed due to the amount of asbestos that would be released into the air. This building attracted flocks of adventurous students and the urban explorers from all over. And obviously, with no maintenance and structural damage after the fire, there were some pretty serious injuries on the property. The city ended up hiring a private security company to keep out the explorers, but the premise was so big, it was hard for the guards to spot small groups of people scurrying into the factory and disappearing into the darkness. My group was fairly experienced and knew a route to avoid the patrols effectively. We embarked on our adventure a little after midnight and parked about a half a mile from the factory and snuck in through a hole in the fence cut by past explorers. We followed a ditch, kind of like a trench, through the big open field that led to the factory. We narrowly missed multiple spotlights scanning the field, having to crouch to hide our silhouette completely in the shadowy ditch. We finally make it to the building and make our entry through a section of wall that collapsed. Every little piece of rubble that was disturbed by us would send out clouds of asbestos-laced dust. And I seemed to be the only one that cared, so I kept that thought to myself and tried to enjoy the experience. We had red-tinted flashlights that were supposed to be harder to see from far away, that we used to illuminate our path as we wandered deeper into the concrete jungle. Abandoned machinery, graffiti, and rubble littered the ground, and my friends were quick to begin taking photos of the surroundings. They seemed very familiar with the area and started splitting up unintentionally, and myself taking care to be near at least one other person that can lead me out if we have to run. We got very split up at one point, and it was just myself and a female. Let's call her Mary. On one of the higher floors, we climbed out of a broken window onto a flat part, not quite at the top, but very high off the ground, about 18 stories or so. She pulled out a can of spray paint and let me tag my initials onto a wall. We took turns doing a small photo shoot of each other. We also became aware of other groups that were present at this time, as we saw flashlights with white light through the windows from our high vantage. This ended up giving us away, as we heard a security truck come up the road and started shining a powerful spotlight through the windows. The relative peace was broken by dozens of feet shuffling on the dusty concrete floors, as multiple groups scrambled to make their escape. Mary and I had chuckled as we listened to the panicked footsteps below us and commented on how weird it was how many people were inside, and we didn't even know. I would have panicked and ran myself, but Mary knew better and said the guards don't usually come in and would be distracted chasing all the runners, and we could just stroll out in a few minutes. The truck roared off, chasing away the explorers. When Mary and I finally started making our way down carefully through the rubble. During the escape, one of the groups must have broke the sketchy rusted out metal staircase we took to get up, so we had to find another way down. It was at this point we checked our phones for any updates on our group, and with no text, we figured they had made the dash to the exit during the initial panic and were still running. This group had multiple contingencies for exploring and would not leave anyone behind, so we were not concerned about that. While we were wandering around looking for a safe way down, we noticed a red glow in one of the rooms. Concerned it was one of us in there, with our red-tinted flashlight, possibly hurt, we quickly moved towards the room to investigate. My stomach sank to my ass when I saw every inch of the walls in that room was covered with demonic graffiti and writings, with satanic paraphernalia littered the ground. We saw everything from several abused voodoo dolls to half-burnt Ouija boards, half-lit candles, and pentagrams. I looked to Mary for comfort, and she was just as horrified with her hand covering her mouth. Sensing her distress, I tried to play it off like this was the work of some prankster leaving this here to scare others, and noting out loud how cliche this all was, especially since we were on the 13th floor and all. She seemed to lighten up a bit from my thoughts, but regardless, there was no denying how uncomfortable we were there. We also could not determine what the source of the red light was. It just seemed to illuminate the room very weakly from an unknown location. We decided to leave, but not to run, as we did not want to lose each other or risk getting hurt. As we exited, I felt my foot hit something soft, and it skidded across the floor. Both of our flashlights illuminated the object, and a cold chill raked down my entire body when we saw the desiccated goat head that I had just punted across the floor. I tend to talk a lot when I'm scared and turn it into humor, so I just narrated what was going on in a goofy way to stop a full-blown panic attack at this point. Mary held my hand as I led the way, deciding to go back and take our chances with a pretty sketchy-looking staircase we had passed earlier, in favor for a safer way down. I offered to go first to test if it would hold my weight, as I was much bigger than Mary. The second to last step fell under my weight, and I sprained my foot from the unexpected drop. As I removed my leg from what used to be a step, I cut it pretty deep on the sharp metal left behind, but I hardly even felt any pain at the time. Mary followed me down, carefully testing her weight on each step before committing to it, and just jumping from about 6 or 7 steps up to avoid the similar fate to mine. After getting off the 13th floor, I felt a little better, but the fear was still very present with the long ways to go to the exit. I hobbled ahead of Mary, holding hands again to avoid separating, but the way became a bit clearer now as we found the path we came up. We were at about the 4th floor when we began hearing shuffling and footsteps above us where we just were, a couple floors up. In the mental state we were in, this terrified us, and it took everything in me to not break into a full sprint. As we neared the exit, the footsteps got closer and closer until they were on the floor directly above us. We were basically fast walking as quick as we could, and as soon as we cleared the collapsed wall that led us outside, we let go of our hands and sprinted towards the car. Luckily, security was not around to give us problems, as they were likely still busy chasing any of the first runners. Even with the shape my leg was in, I made it through the hole in the fence first and waited the couple seconds Mary took to get through. As I waited, I glanced at the factory and saw over a dozen silhouettes standing on the flat part that we were just on a few minutes ago. They could have been other explorers like us, but this just creeped me the hell out. Why hadn't they ran like everyone else if they were waiting it out like us? By now, the guards are probably getting back into their regular patrols. So why wait that long? Mary ducked through the hole and looked at me, following my gaze to the shadows on the roof, and became visibly disturbed. They weren't moving. They weren't showing any body language to suggest they were interacting with each other. Just standing there. I became disturbed by the idea they could be staring at us too, so I quickly grabbed Mary's hand and resumed our fast walk towards the car. We got to the car, to the greetings of all our extended friends, still pumped with adrenaline after running and giddily sharing funny personal accounts of whatever happened. They grilled us on how we got out, and the story we gave them obviously was not what they were hoping for, and got blown off immediately, suggesting we took a little extra time to go make out or something. They wanted us to go back with them and show them the room, but Mary and I said there was no way in hell we were going back, at least not tonight, and blamed it on my ankle that was now throbbing and swollen to almost twice its normal size. Urban exploring never caught on for me, especially after my first experience, and Mary refused to ever visit the factory again. We described the room to our friends and told them to go check it out, but they were never able to find it despite multiple attempts. I kind of grew apart from the group over the years and found my own group, but I occasionally talked to Mary about our experience that night. Apparently, our story got around and it became a popular task for explorers to attempt to find the now nicknamed Red Room. As far as we know, nobody has been able to find it after us.